So today we'll start with JavaScript. Now, so JavaScript is a client scripting language, and this is the best option which is being used across all browsers, right? So basically, let us understand why we have JavaScript as a very powerful uh, client scripting language, right? When we have so many programming languages in market, we have, right? So generally, we know the server technology, right? Server program technology, which means when we have any programming language, right, to generate any web application, right? So what generally happens, right? Whenever we deploy it in server generates a page, right, which is kind of rendered as part of HTML, right? Which is basically it will generate a static HTML page, right? So when we say static HTML page, which means no action will be taken on top of this page, right? So as soon as page is rendered on a browser, no action is generated, right? When you mouse over or when you click on any keys on a keyboard, right? No action will be generated because everything is server side handled, right? But in current world, we know that whenever any page comes up, but user expects so many things to happen. Like for example, take a very simple example: when you mouse over on menu, right? So he want to see all the sub menus without even a click, right? When I go to menu, it should automatically show the sub menus, right? For example, when I have some time ticker, for example, it should automatically show ticking the time, right, every second, right? So time ticking every second, you can't you can't direct from server every second or every millisecond, right? Because page will get freeze then. So you got to handle that at client side. So definitely for this, we need to have a programming at client side. So every time I say client side, right? So please do remember, I'm actually talking about the browser at user end, which has nothing to do with the server, right? So this is important. So we're talking about the client side, right? Where some actions need to be taken, right? Where user can have a easy access over the website. So that is something which is a first requirement called interactive, right? So my page should be interactive, basically. So whenever I have a page, you should be able to mouse over the menus. You should be able to select the menu. Whenever he selects, for example, if it has got any sub features, it should give it directly without sending a request to server. Everything should happen at a client side, and then whenever he actually selects any server request, then it should be posting it, right? So which means we need a programming language should be interactive. Second, and while we are generating so many things on page, for example, you're generating a registration page, right? So registration page contains, for example, a kind of date of birth, right? Kind of email, right? And kind of for example, you have a phone number and so on, phone and name and so on, right? So these are like very important and critical and mandatory fields we have, right? The first thing is that during this registration form, right? Anyways, after all this, you have something called a save or submit button, right? So when I don't enter anything, and when I click on save, right, I need to actually alert user saying you have to enter the mandatory fields, yes, right? So till now, what we have seen, for example, in .NET, right? You guys have done the assignment, right? You have used the controls, right? ASP.NET controls, to generate alert. So that is something which is server generated again, right? Which means your when I click on save, right, you're actually triggering a request to server. Server is validating whether all these fields are there or not, and then it generates a it is generating um, error message, but which is definitely not a good idea, right? So here again, I need a client programming which should handle this. So as soon as I say, okay, these are mandatory, it should be handled directly in page itself. I don't have to send it to request to server, right? In the same line, for example, he enters wrong date of birth, for example, right? He says year, which is like greater than current year, or just you want date of birth to be at least minimum age you want to calculate, for example, 14 years or 15 years or 18 years, kind of, right? So the basic validations, and for example, you need to have a valid email ID. You need to have a valid phone number. You should not give any uncertain phone number, for example, right? The basic phone number of so and so number of digits, so and so characters only to be used, so and so characters should not be used, right? All these stuff. So these are called as your client side validations. So basically, validations. So these two are very important, right, features, right, which we need in current world for sure, in order to make our website very powerful, right? So definitely when we do need, so we need something which works at a client side programming. So we need something called client side programming language, right? So at that moment of time when this was a discussion, right, there were so many programming languages. For example, there is C and C++. Yeah, can we consider this for actually generating any client side programming? Now, the basic constraint in C and C++ is C and C++ needs a compiler which is specific to operating system, right? Windows have got its own compiler for C and C++. Linux have got its own, so the behavior may change. But here, when I'm actually working on client side, right, I may or may not have the compiler, for example, because C and C++ looks for compiler in the inbuilt operating system, right? So they are completely platform dependent, right? And moreover, they need a compiler whenever they are actually executed. So definitely we can't actually consider C and C++. Now you can take, if we are talking about platform dependency, for example, right? At that moment when Java, I mean all these programming languages are coming up, we also had one powerful language called Java, right? Which is completely or purely platform independent language, right? And yes, Java has got right a feature called applet. I don't know whether you have idea or not. So Java have got something called applets, which completely works on top of a browser, right? So yes, I mean, why can't we take this? We can actually consider these applets as part of Java and do the client side, right? We can do that, but applet in turns look for Java framework installed in the machine, right? So when I'm running, let's say a web page, right, in my PC, and if applets are there on the Java page, then it looks for framework in my machine, right? And if framework is not there, then the tablet will not work. Which means there is a dependency of framework to be installed in my machine, right? Which I don't want. I'm just taking a simple machine. I don't know programming language. I don't want to install anything, but my page should work as is. So even here you can see that Java is something which is even being platform independent. So it is not so intuitive to take up, right? So this is the reason why we actually got a programming language called JavaScript, right? So there were many right um, Scripting languages, we have kind of JavaScript, we have a VB script, right? Right, we had something called JScript. Anyways, VB script and JScripts are from Microsoft, right? And they are mainly designed for Internet Explorer only, right? So they don't work on all the browsers, and they don't have any they're platform sorry, browser dependent, right? So that's the reason why we have a JavaScript, right, which is a specification actually defined by Netscape, right? So these are Netscape defined specification we have, where it is acknowledged by the huge computer community or software community called ECMA, right, which is called as a European Computer Manufacturers Association. They do maintain this JavaScript. So here, so when we talk about JavaScript now, how it is, common across. So what happens here? Every browser. So here for JavaScript, you don't need anything called compiling or build. Now everyone know when we have a programming language, what is a compilation, what is a build. But here JavaScript doesn't need anything called compilation or anything. So it is interpreted, right? Every browser, right, have got something called interpreter for all platforms, right? So JavaScript is interpreted, it is not compiled, unlike you have C++, Java, or any other programming languages as such, right? And interpreter, what it does is it actually executes, right, line by line, right? Interpreter, normally what happens, it executes every line by line program. So JavaScript, when you have, let's say for example, 100 lines of code, it executes line by line. But that's fine when you compare with C++, Java programming language. Maybe it is actually executing slow, but that's fine. End of the day, where it is executing, it is executing at client side, right? So which means only that action will be performed. So comparatively, you will not be able to see the difference we have, right? Because it runs at a specific user machine. Whereas the programming languages, Java, C++, for example, we have actually deployed in server side. So server side hits will be so many, that so many users will be hitting, right? And that specific program have to be executed for multiple users, which is not the case in JavaScript, right? So that's the main important stuff you have in JavaScript. It is interpreted, right? And every browser have got interpreter which interprets the JavaScript and executes, right? So basically, whoever have got a basic knowledge of at least C, for example, if you, as you know, you have a knowledge of C sharp, the programming syntax and all, right? So you will be able to actually learn this very easily. No, don't have to worry. So basically, syntax and everything will be similar to C, right? But JavaScript is basically influenced by Java programming language. So the main syntax, right? Or it's not same. I'll say the main. I mean, it is actually influenced by Java, where it is not actually taking the complete features of Java, but yes, and there is no connection between Java and JavaScript, guys. Okay, it's altogether different. So here we have many advantages of JavaScript. So we can create classes, we can create objects, we can have whatever programming, right? Like we can have creation of arrays, creation of loops, right? We can do everything whatever a simple programming language can do. So end of the day, JavaScript is not a very critical language. It's a very simple programming language, and with a very simple syntax we have, right? So, and JavaScript is completely loosely coupled programming language. It doesn't have anything called data type, right? So, when I say it doesn't have data type, we'll understand we have a few direct types which will handle any type of data, we have, right? So it will be automatically converting the existing object types to that specific data. But to be straight, JavaScript doesn't have any data type specified. As we have for other languages like .NET, we have many data types which have got specific memory allocated, right? And so many stuff happens, right? But JavaScript doesn't have that, right? And JavaScript mainly is powerful because it works together with HTML DOM. DOM meaning document object model, right? So HTML DOM in the sense, definitely when you have a HTML page, for example, right? If you want to perform something, some actions in the HTML, what do we need? We need the object of the HTML to be handled by JavaScript. So JavaScript and HTML DOM works together to generate the magic. We are going to see this, even the complete DOM models we have, right? Which we are going to see on top of JavaScript itself, right? So this DOM API actually does make the web page dynamic or interactive, whatever you're talking about, right? Everything, right? The DOM actually makes it interactive, and we are gonna see each and every model of a DOM object how we can handle in JavaScript. Okay, so again, HTML DOM is a specification we have, right, by your W3C. Right, it's a computer so software community we have, right, who have actually defined the DOM model specification, right? So that's your actual background we have for DOM, right? So this is something which is a background of JavaScript we have, how it actually originated, and why do we have JavaScript more powerful even now, even today. Whatever is built on client side, right? Whatever big programming languages, whatever big programming languages for SPA programming, which is single page application programming, can be, or big MVC frameworks and can be there, are built on top of JavaScript because of its flexibility, dynamic nature, right? As a individual programming, and the integration, smooth integration with the DOM. That's why JavaScript makes a very powerful language, or a very powerful client scripting programming language. Fine. So this is what is a main basic background we have. So now let's start with a sample program, right? And we'll see some of the programs today, right? And believe me, if you are good at I started with good at C basically. You don't have to be C because you already know some .NET, C sharp, right? C sharp programming a lot. So here, so this will be very easy for you, right? So to understand, but how to write and everything, yes, we'll understand now. So I'm gonna use Visual Studio, right, for this, in order to actually, as you guys are handy, right, I'll actually start using Visual Studio. And anyways, you're not going to create project and solutions and all. I'll show you how to create a simple HTMLs, right, and use it. So let me open up Visual Studio. Okay, so now, so here, let me close all. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to create my basically file. So let me go to file, let me create new HTML file. I'm going to go to file here. Visual Studio is very handy for creating file and directly running, and to see it on browser, right? It's very handy, so that's why I'm using this. So let's go and create HTML page. This is the HTML page I want. Click on open. So this will create a template, HTML basic template format and a page. So we are going to understand throughout right JavaScript and basically maybe jQuery 2, right, in the same format. Perfect. So this is my first page, right? So now this is my first page. So let me save it somewhere. So let me take the path. For example, here I'm gonna go to my videos, March batch. So here, let's say here, I'm gonna make some JavaScript. So I'm gonna use this folder for saving all our files. So let me save it. And when I click on save, it will open up this, and let me call it as first program .html. You can see we're actually creating HTML files here altogether, right? Perfect. Now this is our basic HTML you have, right, where you can see that I have a head tag, body tag and all. So now for the first program, so whenever you want to write any script, right, because we are going to embed the script in HTML, right, mainly JavaScript. So here at least you can write script anywhere you need, in either in a body or in a head, right? So it will generate a basic script. So here I'll be using a tag called script tag, right? So this is a script where we can actually write, right, our JavaScript program. So if you're using, for example, ASP.NET page, right, you can say you can actually create the same tag script and you can mention the type as text/JavaScript. Okay. So these lines, whatever I said, these lines, whatever we're gonna write is something which is executed by browser itself, right, line by line by interpreter, right? So now here, let's write a simple program. For example, what I want, right? I want var. Var is a type we have which can handle any type of data type in JavaScript, right? For example, I'm going to take var some variable called dt1, for example, which is my to handle date. So here again in JavaScript we have some predefined functions. The first function being a function or a predefined classes and functions, right? So here the predefined function being date. So I'll say new date. Open and close. This is okay. So here in JavaScript, either you can actually use a semicolon, or even if you don't use a semicolon, doesn't matter. Every statement may or may not end with semicolon. But best practice is to have semicolons to you can actually break the sentences as such. Now this is my data, for example, right? So now I want to print it on top of it's a page. So for that you have a property called document, global variable. Now this is one of the DOM object we have, right? Dot, we have something called write of. For example, initially I'm gonna write something called hello world, right? I want to write hello world. Forget about the variable I've defined. That this is my simple program I've written, and you can see here you can actually write your string. You can either use single quotes or double quotes, doesn't matter. It will take either of them as a string. Okay, So now let me run this. So running is simple. Just right click on your page and you have something called view in browser. Click on it. Right? It automatically, definitely it needs a server, right? So you can see it will automatically generate your, automatically runs your program, right? Sets up on separate port and this will open up. Hello. So this is something which I have written from a simple JavaScript, right? So now whatever we are writing in here, end of the day it will be converted to HTML. So for example, let's say I'm going to have a BR tag inside this document, right? And then I'm going to take document dot write. Now let's go one step ahead. For example, I have a DT. What is DT? DT is nothing but my date, right? So DT is a object variable of date class, right? So date class is nothing but the predefined date class we have in JavaScript. So here you can see I can get my get date, get day, or right, I can get my so many things. So let's say for example I have a get date, right? So everything else is same as we have learned in other programming language, right? Whatever you want, right? You can actually take it directly. I'm concatenating so many things. DT1 again dot. For example, I want to show get seconds. This is what I want to show. But let's run it. Right click on this and say view in browser. So you have 28.8. So let me just refresh. You will see when I refresh, right, it will actually get my system time, right? So today is 28th, for example. For this is picking my local machines system. Again, client side scripts, right? Whatever you want to do, it always does on a client side, and client side is always a user whoever is opening up this page. If you open the same page right now in your machine, it will give you 27 and the seconds will be running up, right? Because it does read the client side details. Now this is how we normally write the program. Now here itself, for example, just to actually see one step, go one step ahead, right? For example, you want to create a simple for loop. You'll see that here I haven't created any function, I haven't created anything, right? I can create, for example, multiple script files, right? Let's say, for example, here I'll go and, for example, here I have a simple header. For example, I've created some HTML. I've created. This is my first JS program, for example. After this header, so after this header I want to again write some script. Yes, you can go ahead, you can write script anywhere. If you remember our scriptlet, right, in .NET, or a razor we have written in our MVC, you can write at any part of your page. End of the day, all the things will be considered as one single script, right? Similarly here you have. So for example, here I want to write a simple loop to print something. Now here looping is again a very simple. Anyways, will come to loops and everything. Don't worry. But I'm just creating a simple. For example, here I have for loop, right? Anyways, don't worry about this. It is auto generated anyways. I'll say here the slots are same again, right? Open. Sorry, you'll have again open and close brackets. So first thing is initialize. Now we know that here the beauty here is we know that there is no data type in here, right? I'll directly take, for example, any variable I is equal to 0. Simple. Automatically it will consider, automatically it will consider I. It will declare a variable inside. A variable can be object type initially, right? And object type can be variable inside, and then automatically it will assign 0. Whenever you assign integer, automatically inside the interpreter, it will consider this I as an integer. That's the beauty here we have. So I'll take the same I as less than, for example, 5, and I'll say I plus plus. Same operators here. We're going to learn operators also, don't worry, right? So now let me write document dot write. For example, I want to print, for example, um, uh, current number. I'll say plus I, for example, plus I'll take br. Br is nothing but break, so that it will write the next statement next. right? So now let me run it. I have written a simple loop as such. Right click and view in browser. See, this is my first program is my this, and loop whatever I'm writing is gonna take the current number as 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. You can see here intentionally I didn't give the semicolon here, right? Either you give semicolon or you don't give, doesn't matter. If you refresh this page again or run this page again, you'll see what we will see. This is how we normally generate uh, going one step ahead. Now let's say, right, you want to generate an alert, for example, a pop-up, for example, right, when you're writing uh, or when you're clicking on it. For example, I am not writing any script as such, right? I'll say, for example, I have a simple input type, right? Type called button, right? And name, for example, let's say, let me call it as click me, right? This is my type of button, and value. Sorry, value is something which will be shown on button, right? Value, let's say this, and name. Let's say name is button click, for so btn click. This is my name. Now, what I want here is, see, the beauty here is that I can embed the small JavaScripts anywhere I want. I don't have to write a some completely script or right. So let me show you how we can actually write or to handle here. So here, what I want in this, I want to handle something called on click event. For example, on click, right, on click of my button, what to do. So here, if you want to write a quick JavaScript here, you can directly say JavaScript and you can start running. Now in this, what do you want? Let's say, for example, I want to generate an alert. Alert is nothing but this will give you alert, right, as a pop-up. Pop-up window is nothing but alert. Alert is nothing but a message box we have, right? For example, here, let's say hello, here's my pop-up. Simple. Right click and say view in browser. Now we'll see, click me, click on it, see, we'll see here. Hello. This is your script. Now the same thing you can also generate from a method. Let's say, for example, you want to write a function in JavaScript, right? For example, I'm going to create a simple script again because I want to. We need a function now, right? So let's write a simple script. Now functions are defined in this way. You have function as function keyword. You have to use a keyword called function. Then only your our JavaScript will understand this. And it doesn't have any return. You can directly write your method name, right? So for example, I'm going to say my method kind of open bracket and close bracket, and inside this, for example, I'm going to create an alert, and I'll say this is my first JS function, right? Now your function is ready. So now, for example, now I have my input, right? So type is button, right? For example, name, let's say btn1 or something. Value, let's say, for example, submit me is my value, and then we're gonna take something called on click, right? So in on click, what I'll do, I want to call the method. I don't want any direct JavaScript as such, right? I want to call this. Yeah, you can directly call this method here. Just call as if you're calling from a class, right? As if you're using the same class, and in the same class you're using this kind of. That's how it goes. So now when I run our browser, when I click on submit me, anyways, if you want it in a separate line, that's fine. Keyword br tag and refresh, it will be next line. Click on it. See, this is my first JS function. This is how you can actually write your function, right? You have, and you can actually generate it on top of your message, which is alert. So this is how we normally handle scripting. You can see that everything while we are writing is, it is straightforward. you don't have anything which is unknown syntax. Every syntax we are going to write like throughout our JavaScript is will be you would have seen this here somewhere here and there, definitely, for sure. That's the beauty of this here, right? So now this is what we have. This is how we normally generate, right? Or write. We're gonna write the JavaScript code. So any questions till now, guys? Any questions at any part of this? Yeah. So is it clear what exactly we're going on, and is it something different, or you need you have any questions at any point? Yeah, perfect. Good. So this is how we normally. Uh, okay, sure, Samantha. Right. So this is how we normally do write our. So now let's go ahead and see the first topic of our JavaScript you have, right, after the sample program. Anyways, for example, called variables and data types. So you may wonder, we said there are no data types, and why Srinath is again calling. Okay, let's see data types. When I say data types, right, actually talking about something called subtypes. Right, we'll understand what is a subtype at all. As I said, JavaScript is completely loosely coupled language, right, which means it doesn't have any specific data types. Again, always do remember it doesn't have something called we have understood like in byte, right? We have understood so many things, long and all. No, they don't. It doesn't have anything as such, right? It just have one thing called var, right, which is our object type variable, right? So we can use this one single variable, right, to declare any type of data based on the data you're initializing. Based on the data we are actually declaring, automatically the var will be converted in that way, right? And how to define a variable? We have already seen defining a variable there, where dt, right? We have already, but that's fine. Let's create a new page, right? Let's create a new HTML file. Let's say I want HTML page. Let me save it. So for example, let me call it as variables, and for example subtypes. So don't worry, I'm gonna share all these pages code, whatever we're writing for you guys. Okay. So now, for example, I'm gonna write a script. I'll say var I is equal to 10, right? So var is the object type of variable type we are defining, and when as soon as I say 10, it will automatically convert. It will automatically understands internally as an integer, or kind of based on the data we are actually providing, right? So based on the data we are providing, var will behave in that way, right? So for example, let me take where I is equal to 10. Yeah, you can continue declaring. For example, I'll say x is equal to 90, right? Yes, there is a valid in one statement you're actually writing multiple. Yes, you can do that, right? So here what you're doing, you're declaring and also initializing. What does it mean? For example, I'll just say y here. What does it mean? You're just declaring, and after this I'll say y is equal to some 100. This is a initialize. Always do remember. We have already learned it, the declaring a variable, initializing a variable. Similar to this, declaring a variable is this, initializing is this. So once you initialize, the meaning of this variable will be effective, right? That's what it is. That's how it is. So now here we have defined a variables. So now, for example, as I said, where will actually behave, right, based on the data you're assigning. So for example, let's say I'm going to take document dot write of, when I say I plus x, for instance, right, and let me run it. See, it will give you 1000, right? So the basically how does it know that when I say plus, it has to take it as a number, because I value we have assigned a number, x value we have assigned a number. When there is some operation happening in between, it know that the operation should be done by done in between two numbers. For instance, now let me make this 10 as a string, right? Now let's see what happens when I run it. Now see, it says 1090. We do know, like when you have a string and when you use a plus after that, what happens? Every other variable or every other concatenated stuff will be considered as a string only. So now when I run it, you'll see 10, 90, 100, everything will be considered as a string, and then it will be, that's how it is. So for example, now let's say I'm going to make y as a string, right? I have y as a string, and I'll say y, x plus y, I'll say plus I again. Let's run this. So what will happen? I plus x plus y plus I am saying. When I run in browser, see, now you'll understand easily. See what is happening? I plus x are numbers. So before that there is no string. So what will happen? It will automatically consider as if it is taking numbers, it will sum up. And then plus y. Y is string. So from here it don't care. From here initially it summed up to number, from here it will take everything as a string only. So here you can see y is 100, and then again your I is 10 again, 10 is taken as string. This is how it will. So the behavior, so why I explain this is the behavior of var is actually decided by the type of value you are assigning. Right? When I assign, maybe when I assign the decimal value, it will automatically consider as if it is decimal. See, the output will give you the decimal. End output will be your decimal, and after that, anyway, string is string. So, based on type of data you are assigning, the var, right, will be behaving. That's how it is. Fine. So this is how we normally define variables and variables. When I say variables, so that's why these are called as subtypes, which means based on data you are actually defining, this variable will be the behavior will be created. Now for the same variables, right, we also have something called scopes. So for example, here I'm writing some script, right, and I'm going to write a simple function, for example function met1, for example. Now here I'll say variable x is equal to 30, for instance, right, and I'll say alert of, right, I plus x, for example. Now what exactly is the meaning of this? So now let me take a simple input here of type button, name, let it be btn1, value is, let's say, click, right, and then for example I'm gonna take on click as met1. So now the beauty here is, see, I've defined x here in this script, and I'm writing one more script to access x. Now which x will be taking? Will it take this or this, right? And again I'm calling I also. I is not defined here, so from where it will take, either here or here. So let me see. Right click and say view in browser. When I click on it, see, it will give you 40 plus 89. What does it mean? Now you can see that the scope of variable here, it is actually considering x. The nearest possible it will take, and it will be same. Whatever you have understood in our scope variables, right, it is same. So here the x value will be 30 and the x value here is 90, right? So which will be considered? Now it will consider the nearest, because it already have the x with the nearest scope. It will consider this x, and when it goes to I is not there in this method, so it will go and check whether it is defined global. Now this is a global declaration you have done, right? It will take from I from here 10.89 plus 30, it will give you 40.89. So this is called as a local variable, and this is your global variable as such. Yes, and you can change your global variable. For example, when I say I is equal to let's say I'm gonna say 80, for example, and I run this page. Click. You'll see right now which value will be taken. The latest assignment. You're assigning a global variable here, right? You're assigning a global variable, so it will consider this global variable only. So these are kind of global variables you have, and these are local to that method as such. So that's why it will actually print the values here. That's how it is done. Right? So for example, after this, so you are actually writing one more script. This is important. Let's say I want document dot write. I want to write the value of I, for example. Now what is the work? What will be the value of I? So here, for example, in this method, I'm clicking on it and I want to write a document. So when I click on it, it will generate an alert. So here what I'm doing, I have a global variable. In one of the method, I'm changing the value and I want to print it. So anyways, in one shot, whenever I'm running my browser, right, it doesn't matter what exactly is happening within the function. But right, whenever I want this method, I can directly. Now here, there is one more beauty. You don't, let's say for example, I don't have this, but I'm gonna call directly a method. Can I call? Yes, you can call directly a method, right, from your script directly. Yes, it does make sense, right? Because inside your the scripting, you have a method, and I'm gonna call method from here. What's wrong here? It will directly hit this method, and it will generate alert. Let's see this. When I run it, you will see alert will be generated, and click on OK. I will see the value of I. So this is a beauty. Now inside this method, I'm changing I, right? So what happens? Now whenever it is assigned, it will generate a new I. Value will be changed. That's why you're waiting. So if you want to actually reconfirm, for example, I'm going to copy this before this method also, which means I'm looking at this I value. Initially I value is 10.89, right? Before I call this method. So when I run and see, let me just have a simple BR also, so that they'll be printed separately, right? So let me click and say browser. You will see, anyways, this you will see initially it is 10.89 because that's the initial value, and after method call it is taking 80 because we are changing the value of I here. So this is kind of a same instance we have. Okay, whenever we change value, it gets changed. So that's the scope of a variable, which is you got to be very careful here. Scope of a variable, right, will change whenever you change. Before this method call, I value will still be 10.89, but as soon as I call method, the value will change and will get updated to yes. Right. So here, see the beauty. See the beauty here. For example, here I have a value I here. Now what if I say where I is equal to 80? When I run it, see what happens, right? When I have variable I, it is same again. We have understood as x, right? When I say where I, the scope completely got changed, right? So when I say scope completely got changed, which means here what we are doing, we are declaring a local variable. So the global variable and local variable behaves in a completely different way. That's how it is. But one more thing, what if I redeclare variable? Let's say for example I'll say where I is equal to some number here. What will happen now? Right, for example here I'm defining variable here. Then what will happen? Now in general, if you see, right, in the same scope, if I define variables in other programming languages like .NET, right? I'm not supposed to define, right, same variable with a variable, sorry, variable with the same name, right, more than once, right? But here you can actually do. So for example, here, let's say I'm redefining variable I. What will happen? Now here, initially it will take the old value itself, and then it will take the same instance of I, but it will change the value of I. Let me show you in this way. For example, I'm declaring new variable here. I'll just say var I. That's it, and I'll assign this I. Right? Doesn't matter. When I run it, see the value. Initial value will be 10.89 itself. Because what is the value of I here? 10.89. So again, even if you're trying to redeclare, the value will be same because you're not reassigning or reinitializing anything to I. Right? But when you start reinitializing, then yes, value of I will be changed. Right? So it may look tricky, but it's a straightforward stuff you have. No confusion as such, right? Where the variables taken up here are kind of a straight type of variables, right? So when you have initialized new value, from that point of time the value of that variable will be considered as a new value only, right? So here the beauty here is sometimes you don't even have to declare a variable. I'll remove all these vars. You don't even have to take a var. See, all right. Oh, okay, so here I'm defining it. Oh, one second. This is a different issue. Anyways, we'll see. Forget about y. We'll come to this. Why it is actually coming. See, I value I haven't declared as var, right? But I'm defining it twice. Anyways, I'm reinitializing. That's why I'm getting. So here, what we did, we are declaring I. It will take I value here when I'm printing, and you can see when I refresh it again, you'll see the. Let me just click no. You'll see the sum is coming to 110. Right, the sum is coming to 110 because x value is again considered to be a variable itself, right? And then you can see the document will print the latest I which we are actually assigning. But generally, right, these type of things are not recommended. Whenever defining, you define that. That's the reason why if we'll have one more some topic of strict mode, right? Strict mode of writing a JavaScript. Basically, when you have when you define a script, strict, it will make sure that you are following all. So at that moment of time, I'll show you all the errors you will get when you don't follow that. Okay, we'll come to that part. So for now, let me keep the var, right? So why to keep this? Because it will help us to understand which one is global variable and which one is local variable. If I remove all vars, what does it mean? When I remove this var and again this var, it means that it is taking the same global variable as such, right? Right? We don't know which one is a local variable and which one is a global variable as such. So this differentiation can be done only when you define, right? See, where you can't use is different. That's a feature inbuilt, but don't ever write any program without declaring a variable. That is very important, right? That's something which we always try to define, right? So this is how we normally do write our stuff. So basically, when we talk about JavaScript types, data types, or subtypes, right? So there are two different subtypes. We have value types, and then you have something called object types. Okay, so here when we say value type, we have a string. It can be number, it can be boolean. Yes, it also takes boolean, right? It can be object itself, you can assign to variable, and then it can be a function. So there are five different data types, right, which can be taken as a value. Important thing, right? So these are the five different things which can be considered for value of a variable. And you can have three different types I can say this is your 5 different value types you have, and then you have 3 different type of objects. So what different objects? Objects itself, don't worry, we are as we are actually just starting it, right? You'll understand when I say object, what does it mean. You have array, it will be taken as object, it will be taken as data, will be taken as object, and now, and the last thing which it takes is null types, or kind of, there are 2 data types which can take nothing. Nothing meaning, it can be null, a small null, or it can be undefined. So these are the 2 value types we have, which it will also take. Null meaning there is no null value. Undefined meaning if you want to use it for any operation, right? I'll show you that. It will give you type of undefined. For example, let me show you this. So we know this type. Now string we know, number, boolean, object we'll see, right? Because we're going to work with object lot many times. Function we're gonna see, and arrays, objects, these things we're gonna see anyways. Null and undefined also we're gonna see, but let me show you some interesting stuff here, right? So for example, let me take a new HTML file again. Let me save it. So for example, here let me take subtypes underscore 2.html. For example, I'll take I is equal to 10. Oh, my mistake. Always start with script. Without script, it doesn't understand what exactly we are doing, right? And I'll say where, let's say for example, x is equal to, for example, I'll take a string ABC. I'll take where x is equal to, let's say true, I'll say, and let's say where sorry, not x, let's give different names so that it won't override. Some h, let's say I'll just declare this, that's it. So now let's write write off. We have an inbuilt function called type of. So as I said, variable will behave in a way based on the value you are assigning, right? What exactly does it mean? Behaving can be, what type of behavior it is doing. You can actually get from type of. So let's say for example, type of I want, right? What type of I it is taking. Let's run this and see. Right click and say view in browser. So you will see. Oh, my mistake. It is true. This error handling will see that. See, as of now, what happened? I assigned something, and it is not. It will not definitely give you compile error, right? You have to handle this. You have to handle this type of error. It says that true. This is a web page debugger window, right? You can actually get errors. It will show you where exactly you have error. We are going to understand even how to debug. No worry. We're going to see how to debug the HTML. So sorry, JavaScript. Okay. So I'll make this true. Right click and save in browser. We'll see number. The type of this I is number. There is nothing like integer, long, and stuff. Okay. It will automatically take it as number. Simple as that. So similarly, for example, I will take this document. Let me just have this br and tag defined. For example, I'll take this. So I'll take it for x. I'll take it for z, and I'll also take it for h. So whatever variables I've defined, basically. Let me run this. Now you will see number, perfect, string, boolean, undefined. You see, undefined meaning now I've declared a variable, but I don't know what type it is. Okay, so what type it is when you don't define, that's your. For example, if I define it kind of null, then I refresh it, right? When I refresh, you'll see it is kind of an object type. Object, right? See, we are talking about type, man, and we are not talking about what value. When I assign null, which means, right, we are trying to assign some instance, so it automatically it will take the object type, right? So that's how That's how the behavior of your object, behavior of a data is considered. So for example here, let's say, let me change this value to object. When I say object, I'll take a square braces and I'll assign something, for example. So if you remember our object class objects, right? When we define objects and when we define some values, right? We need some, let's say for example, in a class we have defined some properties generally, right? And I'm creating an object of that and I'm assigning. So it will automatically spread across. Similarly here, what we are doing, we are taking a square braces and assign some values, which means some object I'm generating for these. We'll understand objects in our later classes in a deeper way. But here my intention is that I'm assigning some object type. So let's say when I run it, it'll automatically see. For example, if I make the same as an array declaration, right? I'm defining something kind of array. So when I run it, right? So here when I'm running it, what is happening? I'm defining it in an array. What do you need identifier here? Am I doing any mistake? It should come to object actually. That's fine. So when I run it, anyways, we'll understand this in deeper. Okay. Again, it will take it into an object because array, end of the day, is an object type. Okay. So array is again an object type you have, which will be taken based on your property. Fine. So this is your type of, which is your subtypes you normally get based on the type of object you're actually assigning, right? You get. So these are the consolidated types, guys. You don't have any more. So JavaScript, right? I'm talking about, right, is the latest one. Whatever we're gonna learn, right? My latest one we are actually learning, right? So all these things, whatever we are going to learn, is valid post JavaScript 1.8.5. Okay, so this is important, right? Because the versions which are before this, right, have got very I don't say it's completely not valid, but most of the features, right, got added after 1.8.5 version of JavaScript, right? And yes, we are going to actually see most of the topics based on the latest one. Fine. So that's how it is, because the latest actually running is our 1.8 basically. I'll say it as X, right? So we are actually learning all the topics of 1.8. So all these will run. Basically 1.8 will run on any browser kind of Chrome. There are some browsers, Chrome 13th version plus. Anyways, Chrome is running almost 20 plus versions now, and you have Firefox. Run minimum. It run minimum on 4 plus versions, and IE basically it run minimum with the IE 10. Okay, so this is a base minimum we need. Okay, when you are actually writing up some things, but that's fine. Most of the things before, there are no major things we have, but yeah, most of the things we are going to learn you can actually apply on these uh, browser versions. Anyways, the whole world is actually using this because everyone who have actually upgraded at least Windows 7, they'll be having IE 10. Okay, so this is what we have for today, right? So any questions, guys? any questions, and tomorrow when we meet we are going to understand the literal called strict. Okay, so that's why I mentioned the version also. It is there, post 108.5. We'll understand what is strict, and tomorrow we'll also understand operators, right? Very important stuff, right? We're going to learn operators, and also we'll see the control statements. Okay, control statements meaning we have two stuffs in control statements: conditional and loop statements, right? So we'll understand both control conditional statements and looping statements we have, and how looping statements can be used and stuff. Okay, and if time permits, we'll also see debugging, basically how to debug, because this is the right time that we have to understand debugging the program. Anyways, when we meet, we'll actually see this, see that. Okay, fine then, guys. So this is what we have for today. So any questions you have? So please do start practicing, and gather as many questions as you have, right? So I'm here to help you out, guys. Right? Thanks a lot for joining. We'll meet up in tomorrow's class.